Have you ever felt like you've been repeating something, not just in this life but across lifetimes? A pattern so old, so precise, that it feels older than your name, older than this body, older than time? What if I told you this isn't random, that you didn't just land in this life, you were assigned to it by a deeper part of yourself that remembers everything? Before you were born, you made promises, sacred ones, to other souls, to this earth, and to your own evolution. And now, those unfinished promises are holding you back. You feel the weight, don't you? The invisible heaviness, the sense of spiritual déjà vu, as if you came here to do something specific, but forgot what it was the moment you entered the body. Blavatsky called this the veil of birth, a sacred forgetting, not a punishment, but a test of remembrance. Because the soul doesn't learn by remembering facts. It awakens through contrast, pain, choice. You may feel like you're stuck in the same loop, meeting the same kinds of people, attracting the same betrayals, falling into the same emotional traps. But what if these aren't mistakes? What if these are echoes of ancient contracts you agreed to fulfill? You see, not all soul contracts are about love and light. Some are forged in shadow, in karmic entanglements that must be untied, not avoided. You may have promised to help a soul awaken, even if they would hurt you first. You may have agreed to enter a lineage of silence, to be the one who breaks the ancestral chain. You may have vowed to remember who you are, in a world that taught you to forget. And until those contracts are honored, you will keep reincarnating into the same energetic loops, over and over again. This is the trap. And yet, there is a hidden door, because every soul contract carries within it a clause of awakening, a moment designed to shake you, to stop you mid-loop, to whisper, this isn't the first time. And when that moment comes, you have two choices: go back to sleep or begin to remember. In The Secret Doctrine, Blavatsky spoke of ancient egos, returning again and again through cycles of form, carrying karmic debts and spiritual codes like encrypted seeds, seeds that only bloom when the soul is ready. And perhaps that's why you're here now, not just watching this, but feeling it. Because part of you already knows, this life isn't random, this pain isn't meaningless. This moment was written. There are agreements your soul made, and they are active. Right now, you can feel the pull, can't you? That soft ache in the background of your life. A soul knocking from the inside, saying, you promised, so stay with me until the end. Because in this video, we will not only explore the most common soul contracts, but reveal why so many of them remain unfinished and how to finally close them. This isn't just about understanding, it's about freedom. Because if you're still stuck, there's a reason, and once you remember it, everything changes. Are you ready to remember? Every soul arrives here with a blueprint, not printed in ink, but encoded in vibration. And within that blueprint lie contracts, agreements the soul made before incarnation, each one tied to a lesson, a wound, a liberation. Blavatsky called them karmic patterns sealed before descent, but you know them as your hardest moments. Let's look at them now, not as pain but as promises, because your life has been trying to remind you. 1. The mirror contract. This is the agreement to meet yourself through another. It often arrives as love, or what you thought was love, but its true purpose is revelation. You meet someone and instantly feel a pull. The connection is magnetic, ancient, and volatile. This is no coincidence. Your souls have danced before, but the mirror isn't meant to comfort you. It's meant to show you what you haven't healed, the abandonment, the rage, the longing, and until you learn to love what you see, this contract remains open. You'll keep finding new mirrors until you stop running from your own reflection. 2. The wound carrier contract. This one is harder to see. It's the agreement to inherit pain, not from your own story, but from your bloodline. You incarnated into a family that sleeps. You were born to parents who never healed, and somewhere before breath, you said, I'll carry this until it breaks. You feel emotions that don't seem to be yours, traumas that echo from generations past. This is ancestral, and the contract here is not to suffer, but to transmute, to alchemize what they buried, to set free what they repressed, to end a cycle they never could. 3. The betrayal contract. Yes, you agreed to be betrayed, but not for cruelty, for clarity. Sometimes the soul needs to awaken not through love, but through the shattering of illusion. The friend who turned, the partner who vanished, the mentor who fell. Each betrayal was a sacred rupture, a crack where light could finally enter, and though it broke you, it also stripped you of naivety, of dependency, of false gods. This contract ends when you stop clinging to the wound and honor the truth it revealed. 4. The silencer contract. You came into a world where your voice was dangerous, not because it was wrong, but because it remembered too much. You were silenced early, told to shrink, to be quiet, to obey. This is no accident. It's the mark of an old soul carrying ancient truths. And so, the soul agrees, I'll forget my voice, to one day reclaim it fully. This is the contract of the messenger, the rebel, the healer who once hid. It ends when you speak, not just loudly, but truthfully, even if your voice shakes. 5. The delay contract. You feel behind, as if everyone else got the map, and you're still wandering in circles. But what if this too was designed? Some souls agree to delay their awakening, to let the pain build until it breaks the dam, because for some, the light is only visible after complete darkness. This contract ends when you stop comparing timelines and honor divine timing. You weren't late, you were preparing. These 5 are only the beginning. Each one is a doorway back to the memory of why you came. And yet, most of them remain active, not because you failed, but because you forgot. Forgot that pain has purpose. That repetition is a signpost, that the soul never forgets what it came to learn. In her writings, Blavatsky hinted that many who suffer endlessly are not cursed, but bound by unfulfilled energetic agreements. They are not victims. They are wanderers in the maze of their own sacred word. But now you're seeing the map. And if this resonates, it means the contract is calling. It's time to remember what you promised. So tell me, which one have you lived? You see the pattern now. The mirror, the wound, the silence, the delay. But why does it repeat? Why, even after awareness, does the same energy find you again? The answer lies not in the emotion, but in the architecture. Because the soul contract is not just an agreement, it's an energetic thread woven into the matrix of your incarnation, and the matrix is designed to make you forget. Helena Blavatsky called it Maya, not simply illusion, but the entire system of appearances that veils the real. You were born into this veil, into a body that hungers, into a world that screams louder than your intuition. And this veil is maintained by forces that thrive on your forgetfulness. Not evil, not demonic, but ancient systems of inertia. They are the laws of energy, untouched by emotion, unchanged by desire. You see, the soul contract lives in your vibration, not in your memory, and unless the energy changes, the pattern repeats. That's why awareness is not enough. You can know your trauma and still relive it. You can understand your childhood and still become your parents. You can feel spiritual and still be enslaved by the loop. The key isn't knowledge, it's transmutation. The Kybalion teaches this as the law of vibration, that everything moves, everything vibrates, and that higher states are not achieved through force, but through resonance. This means you don't escape the loop by fighting it. You escape by no longer matching its frequency. But the loop is intelligent. It adapts. It evolves. It speaks in the voices of lovers, bosses, and beliefs. It knows your weak spots, your forgotten vows, your karmic cravings. So it keeps you circling, not by chains, but by familiarity. You think you're choosing, but the loop has trained your taste. You're drawn to what feels like home, even if home was pain. And so the loop becomes your identity. You call it just how I am, but it's not who you are. It's who you became to survive the contract. This is where most souls stay stuck, not in suffering, but in semi-conscious repetition. They awaken just enough to feel the pain, but not enough to change the pattern. Why? Because change threatens the architecture. It shakes the foundation of false self. It demands ego death, energetic death, timeline death, and most aren't ready because the loop is a seducer. It says, at least this pain is known, but the soul doesn't want safety. It wants completion. Blavatsky warned of this subtle prison, of those who begin to remember, but then fall back asleep, not because they failed, but because the system is strong, and forgetting feels easier than becoming. But if you've made it this far, that you're already past the first gate, the loop cannot hold what has been fully seen, and right now you are seeing it. You're watching from the edge of the maze, where the path splits. One road leads back to repetition, familiar, painful, but comfortable. The other leads into unknown frequency, unwritten identity, true liberation. But there is one more key you must hold, and it's this: you can't complete the contract from the same energy that created it. You must rise, not through thought, but through vibration, and that is where we go next. What if the soul already left you clues on how to rise above the loop? The loop ends, not with action, but with alignment. You don't fight a contract, you fulfill it or dissolve it through frequency, and that's the hidden teaching. Most souls try to escape the contract like it's a curse, but it isn't. It's an invitation to complete what was started. So how do you complete a soul contract? The mind wants a list, a ritual, and a spell, but the soul already encoded the answer into your being. Let me show you how. There are 3 keys, and if you hold them, really hold them, the loop cannot bind you anymore. Key 1. Energetic recognition. Completion begins the moment you say, "This wasn't random." When you stop blaming, stop escaping, and instead ask, "What was I here to learn from this?" Blavatsky called this the awakening of the subtle body, a moment when the soul reclaims authorship, not victimhood, but vibrational responsibility. This doesn't mean you deserve the pain, it means you're ready to transmute it. And that shift, from resistance to remembrance, begins to dissolve the contract's grip, because the loop is fed by your denial. Once you recognize it, it begins to starve. Key 2. Frequency shift. This is where the Hermetic wisdom enters. The law of correspondence says, "As within, so without." If the contract lives within you vibrationally, you must change your internal field. How? Not by thinking differently, but by feeling differently, by changing what you tolerate, by changing what you seek, by changing the emotion you breathe in silence. This is subtle work, invisible, but irreversible. When your frequency no longer resonates with betrayal, betrayers stop arriving. When you no longer carry abandonment, you stop recreating it. You don't chase closure. You become the version of you that no longer needs the loop. And then the contract dissolves. Key 3. Sacred closure. Some contracts must be completed consciously. They require soul-level closure. You may feel called to write a letter, speak a truth, or finally walk away, not in pain, but in peace. Because peace, guys, is the signature of completion. When you can hold the memory and without the charge, you've fulfilled the promise, even if the other person never apologizes, even if no one understands, even if the world calls it unfinished, you'll know. Because your soul, it will stop aching in that place, and that silence is your liberation. But remember, not all contracts end in this life. Some are too dense, some are shared with souls who are still sleeping, and that's okay. Completion doesn't always mean reconnection. Sometimes it means release. The contract ends when you no longer need it to define you. Blavatsky spoke of this as returning the energy to source. When a loop is seen, felt, transmuted, its energy is reclaimed, not lost but liberated. You become lighter, clearer, less reactive, not because the pain never happened, but because its purpose is fulfilled. And now, a new frequency emerges, one not written in karmic ink, but in divine will. You're not repeating anymore, you're creating, and that is the signature of a soul released. So pause now. Ask yourself, what emotion, what pattern, what person still holds a contract with you? And are you ready to meet it with remembrance instead of resistance? Because once you do it, you don't have to repeat it again, ever. What if the completion of that contract is the very reason your soul came into this body? Have you ever felt it? That strange resistance, the moment you're about to change, you do all the inner work. You recognize the contract. You feel the truth of it vibrating through your chest, and then suddenly you pull back, you numb, you scroll, you question everything, and the loop tightens, not because you failed, but because you got close. Very close. You see, the soul contract is not just a lesson, it's a structure, a pattern that has been holding your identity in place. And the moment you begin to dissolve the pattern, your ego panics. Because if the contract ends, then who are you? This is the final guardian, the last defense, the resistance before release. Blavatsky wrote of this phenomenon, the astral inertia that clings to familiarity. She said, "The soul longs for freedom, but the form fears dissolution." And so, just when the loop begins to crack, you suddenly feel tired. You question the path, you look for distractions, you even miss the pain. That's not failure, that's the loop defending itself. Because to break free means letting go of the self that was built to survive inside the loop. And that self doesn't go quietly. Let me show you how it works. The closer you come to fulfilling the soul contract, the more tempting it becomes to abandon the work. Why? Because the unknown is terrifying. The contract may be painful, but it's known, predictable, structured. Your nervous system has built a home around it. You found meaning in the wound, purpose in the struggle, even identity in the limitation. So when freedom knocks you don't feel joy, you feel grief, because part of you knows this will be a death, and it's true. The version of you that was forged in the fire must now return to ash, so the soul can rise. This is why the resistance comes strongest at the edge, when the healing is real, when the change is permanent, when the loop is unraveling. You suddenly feel doubt. You romanticize the past. You cling to old roles. You say things like, maybe I was overthinking. Maybe it wasn't that serious. Maybe this is just who I am. No, beloved. That's the contract speaking. That's the loop, fighting to live. Because it knows you're waking up. And once you fully awaken, you stop feeding it. So what do you do when resistance comes? You pause, you breathe, and you witness it. Not as truth, but as turbulence. Like a storm before the clearing, like the rattle before the release. And then you choose again. You say, I see you, but I am not this loop anymore. That sentence, it is a spiritual blade. It cuts through the fog, because you're not here to stay safe in cycles. You're here to close sacred circles, to finish what was started, and finally step into the version of you who no longer needs to suffer to evolve. Blavatsky warned that the final illusion is identity itself, not the body, not the world, but the story you told yourself about who you had to be in order to survive your karma. But now, that story can end, if you're willing to grieve it. So if you feel resistance rising, take it as a sign. Not that you're going the wrong way, but that you're exactly where you need to be, on the edge of your own return. And tell me, what version of you are you willing to let die so the soul can complete its vow? We've arrived, beloved soul, at the final gate. Now you know, not just in your mind, but in your soul. The loop was never random. The pain was never meaningless. The people, the losses, the timing, all of it was scripted by you, not to punish, but to remember. To awaken something ancient inside you, something that has been waiting for lifetimes to be fulfilled. A vow, a contract, a sacred promise. And now, you stand at the threshold. So what happens now? The soul doesn't need more information. It needs integration. It needs you to become the one who remembers, to stop asking for permission to heal, to stop doubting the voice that whispers, it's time. It needs a ritual, not external, but vibrational, a return to your original word. So close your eyes for a moment and breathe. Let your body soften, let the world fade, and listen. Can you hear it? The echo of a promise made long ago, perhaps before this earth was born. A moment when your soul spoke clearly, beyond fear. I will return, and I will finish what I began. You are now returning to that vow, and with that return comes release. The loop only lives in your forgetting, but in this remembering, it loses power. It cannot hold what is awake. Blavatsky wrote that the soul, when fully conscious, becomes its own liberator. It no longer waits for fate. It creates, not from karma, but from wisdom, not from survival, but from sacred will. So ask yourself now, what pattern ends with me? What wound no longer needs repeating? What contract can be closed? Not with vengeance, but with vision. Because true completion is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't seek validation. It simply ends. And in that ending, something new begins. Her frequency untouched by the loop, a life not built on pain but purpose, a soul no longer orbiting old stories but writing new ones. You were never trapped, you were just remembering. And now that you see, you must choose. Not once, but over and over. Every morning you wake up, you choose to not repeat, to speak when silence once ruled, to love when fear wants to return, to walk away from what you once chased. Each small choice breaks the loop a little more. And one day, you look around at you and realize it's gone, not because someone saved you, but because you remembered you were never asleep, just preparing. So now, dear soul, make your vow again. Say it silently if you feel it. I am ready to complete what I began. I no longer serve the loop. I serve the light that called me here. And as you say it, know that the universe listens, because soul contracts are not made in solitude. They are echoes across dimensions. And this moment is being witnessed. You chose this body for a reason. You chose this path with full knowledge of its weight and its reward. And now you're remembering why. No more delays, no more loops, only return, only completion, only the soul becoming what it always was. So ask yourself, what if your freedom was the final act that healed every life you've ever lived?